They called themselves the kings of the universe. But their enemies had another name for them, the lords of death. In an age before gunpowder, before iron armor, before even the idea of nations, one empire rose from the dust of Mesopotamia using a weapon so shocking, so calculated, that it baffled the ancient world. Not a new sword, not a new chariot, but a new idea, fear as policy. This is the story of the Assyrian Empire and the ruthless strategy that built one of history's most unstoppable war machines. The River Kingdom. Long before the rise of Rome, centuries before Persia marched across continents, the world's first superpower was forming along the banks of the Tigris River. Assyria. At first glance, it was nothing special. A small kingdom surrounded by wealthier, older civilizations. To the south, Babylon, ancient and respected. To the west, the rich trade cities of the Levant. To the north, fierce mountain tribes who bowed to no one. Assyria had no natural borders. No mountains. No seas. What they did have was danger everywhere. And danger shapes nations. To survive, the Assyrians became soldiers. To expand, they became conquerors. And to rule, they discovered something far more powerful than armies. They discovered the psychology of domination. The perfect enemy. The first secret of Assyrian strategy was simple: make rebellion unthinkable. In most ancient empires, conquered people revolted constantly. Egypt, Babylon, China all faced endless uprisings. But under the Assyrians, rebellions were rare. Why? Because the Assyrians turned punishment into a public performance. When they captured a city, they did not just win, they broadcast the victory. Relief sculptures carved into palace walls showed impalements, flayings, mass deportations. Not hidden, not ashamed, but proudly displayed for visiting rulers. To modern eyes, it seems monstrous. To the Assyrians, it was a message. We do not simply defeat enemies. We erase them. And the world believed it. Neighboring kings surrendered before the first arrow was fired, choosing tribute over annihilation. The Assyrians didn't just wage war, they managed perception. In an era without media, Assyria invented propaganda. The war machine. Fear alone cannot build an empire, can only suppress resistance. To expand, the Assyrians turned their entire society into a war machine. For the first time in history, they created something revolutionary. A professional standing army. Not farmers who became soldiers during planting off-season. Not nobles who fought for glory. Full-time soldiers. Full-time engineers. Full-time logisticians. They were paid, housed, and supplied by the state, giving Assyria the ability to wage war year after year, across mountains and deserts. Every unit was specialized. Archers who could unleash storms of arrows. Heavy infantry with shields the size of doors. Charioteers pulled by massive teams of horses. Siege engineers capable of building ramps, tunnels, and battering rams on short notice. And behind them all, the most important innovation, a supply system. Assyrian armies marched with depots of grain, fodder, and weapons. No ancient kingdom had ever organized its logistics at this scale. With this system, Assyria did what seemed impossible. It made continuous conquest sustainable. The iron fist of Ashurbanipal. But it was under kings like Tiglath-Pileser III, Sargon II, Sennacherib, and Ashurbanipal that the Assyrian playbook reached its peak. Take Ashurbanipal, a man who could quote poetry, read multiple languages, and personally torture rebels. The perfect Assyrian king. Under him, the empire reached its greatest extent, stretching from Egypt to Iran. But what made him feared was not just military power, it was his mind. Ashurbanipal understood storytelling. When he crushed a revolt, he carved the story into palace walls. When he captured a king, he made sure everyone knew exactly how that king begged for mercy. When he destroyed Babylon, completely leveling one of humanity's oldest cities, he turned it into a myth of divine justice. He wanted Assyria's image to burn itself into the world's imagination. And it worked. To the tribes, kingdoms, and city-states around them, the Assyrians were not just an empire. They were a force of nature, a storm that could not be reasoned with, only endured. The dark secret of Assyrian power. But behind the terror and triumph lay Assyria's greatest weakness. It needed endless war to survive. The professional army required constant victories, land to pay soldiers, treasure to fund campaigns, slaves to build palaces and roads. The moment conquest slowed, the system cracked, and enemies who had once cowered suddenly rose. Babylon, Elam, the Medes, the Scythians, the Chaldeans, all saw the same opportunity. A predator that must keep moving is vulnerable the moment it stops.